America. Land of opportunity, at least that's what they tell us. But for millions of workers and immigrants, the reality is far different. They face a system rigged against them. Politicians, corporations, even some unions have turned their backs on the people they claim to represent. This is the story of how America broke its promise to its most vulnerable citizens. We're talking about broken workers' compensation systems that leave injured workers high and dry. We're talking about exploitative labor practices that trap immigrants in a cycle of poverty. And we're talking about the hypocrisy of leaders who benefit from immigrant labor while enacting policies to keep them down. This isn't just about numbers, it's about real people's lives. Families struggling to put food on the table. Workers risking their health for a paycheck. It's time to hold those in power accountable. It's time for America to live up to its promises.
The Green Party, champions of the environment, fighters for social justice. Right? Well, maybe not always. While they've been busy pushing for single-payer healthcare, which, don't get us wrong, is important, they seem to have forgotten about the plight of injured workers. Where's the outrage over inadequate workers' compensation systems? Where's the demand for federal oversight to ensure injured workers across the country are treated fairly? It seems like the Green Party is so focused on the forest that they've forgotten about the trees. And in this case, the trees are the workers who are getting chopped down by a system that doesn't care. The Green Party needs to remember its roots. It needs to fight for all workers, not just those who fit neatly into their platform. Our revolution, born from Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign, promised to shake things up. Medicare for all, free college, a living wage, all great ideas. But what about the workers who are struggling right now? The ones who can't wait for a revolution that may never come? Where's the push for workers' compensation reform? Where's the anger over the exploitation of immigrant workers, forced to work dangerous jobs for low wages, often denied even basic protections? It's great to dream big, but real change happens on the ground, one battle at a time. Our revolution needs to remember that the fight for social justice includes the fight for workers' rights. It's time to channel their energy into concrete action, into demanding better conditions for those who are being left behind.
Election season, the time for soaring rhetoric and empty promises. Every candidate claims to be a champion of the working class. They shake hands, kiss babies, and swear to fight for the little guy. But when the cameras are off and the votes are counted, what happens? Take Jason Call, a progressive candidate in Washington state. Sure, he talks a good game about Medicare for all and environmental justice. But when was the last time you heard him mention workers' compensation reform? When did he stand up for the rights of immigrant workers? And Kshama Sawant, the socialist firebrand from Seattle. She's all about raising the minimum wage. But what about those who can't work because they were injured on the job? Where's her outrage over the exploitation of undocumented workers? These politicians are quick to capitalize on the struggles of the working class, but when it comes to actually fighting for them, they're nowhere to be found. It's all talk, no action.
Section 5. The American Dream, for sale to the highest bidder. The American Dream. The idea that anyone, no matter where they come from, can achieve success through hard work and determination. This dream has been a beacon of hope for millions, a promise that in America, your future is not determined by your past. But for many immigrants, that dream has become a nightmare. The path to success is fraught with obstacles, and the promise of a better life often feels like a distant mirage. They come to this country seeking a better life, only to find themselves trapped in a system that exploits and dehumanizes them. Instead of opportunities, they encounter barriers and exploitation, their hopes dashed by a reality that is far from the dream they envisioned. Take Melania Trump, a woman who embodies the contradictions of the American immigration system. Her journey to the United States was paved with privileges that many can only dream of. She was able to obtain an Einstein visa, supposedly reserved for individuals with extraordinary ability, while countless others with equally impressive skills are denied entry. This disparity highlights the inequities in the system, where merit is often overshadowed by connections and wealth. It seems the American dream is more accessible to those who arrive on a golden escalator. The doors that are closed to many are wide open for a select few, creating a divide that undermines the very essence of the American promise. And what about the countless families torn apart by deportation? The human cost of these policies is immeasurable, leaving scars that last a lifetime. The children who grow up without their parents, their childhoods marked by loss and uncertainty, the spouses forced to navigate life alone. The emotional toll on these families is profound, affecting their well-being and future prospects. The Trump administration, despite its rhetoric about family values, has shown little regard for the human cost of its immigration policies. The disconnect between words and actions is stark, revealing a system that prioritizes politics over people. The American dream shouldn't be for sale. It should be a right, not a privilege, accessible to all who seek it. It shouldn't be a privilege reserved for the wealthy and well-connected. The dream must be inclusive, embracing diversity and equality. It's time to create a system that values all people, regardless of where they were born. A system that upholds the true spirit of the American dream, where everyone has a fair chance to succeed.
Here's a dirty little secret: both Democrats and Republicans have benefited from the broken immigration system. They talk tough on immigration to score political points, but behind closed doors, they're more than happy to profit from the labor of undocumented workers. Remember when Obama was criticized for being deporter-in-chief? Deportations skyrocketed under his watch. And Trump? Well, let's just say his businesses have a long and well-documented history of employing undocumented workers. The truth is, both parties are complicit in maintaining a system that exploits vulnerable people. They benefit from the cheap labor, from the for-profit detention centers, from the fear and uncertainty that keeps immigrants silent and powerless. It's time to call out this hypocrisy. It's time to demand better from our elected officials. It's time to create an immigration system that is humane, just, and works for everyone.
Unions, the supposed protectors of the working class, have been strangely silent on the issue of workers' compensation reform. You'd think they'd be up in arms about the inadequate benefits, the bureaucratic nightmares, the injured workers left to fend for themselves. But where's the outrage? It seems like some unions have become too cozy with the very corporations they're supposed to be holding accountable. They've forgotten their purpose, their duty to fight for the rights of all workers, not just those at the bargaining table. This isn't just about workers' compensation either. It's about the exploitation of immigrant labor, the weakening of labor laws, the erosion of workers' rights across the board. Unions need to wake up and smell the coffee, or maybe the tear gas. It's time for them to rediscover their backbone, to remember who they're supposed to be fighting for.
When systems fail, it's always the most vulnerable who suffer the most. These individuals often find themselves trapped in cycles of poverty and exploitation, with little hope for escape. And in the United States, few groups are more vulnerable than child laborers, prisoners, and undocumented immigrants. These groups face unique challenges that make their lives incredibly difficult and often dangerous. These are the people who are most likely to be exploited, abused, and denied basic human rights. They live in constant fear and uncertainty, with their well-being often overlooked by society. Child labor laws are riddled with loopholes, particularly in the agricultural industry. These loopholes allow for the exploitation of young workers, who are often forced to work in harsh conditions. Children as young as 12 are legally allowed to work long hours in dangerous conditions, often for sub-minimum wage. This not only jeopardizes their health and safety, but also deprives them of a proper education and childhood. Prison labor is another stain on the American conscience. Inmates are often compelled to work under the guise of rehabilitation, but the reality is far more sinister. The 13th Amendment may have abolished slavery except as a punishment for crime, but the reality is that many prisoners are forced to work for little or no pay, often in grueling and hazardous conditions. This modern-day form of slavery is a glaring contradiction to the values of freedom and justice. And then there are the undocumented immigrants, working in the shadows, terrified to speak out against abuse for fear of deportation. Their lack of legal status makes them easy targets for exploitation and abuse. They are routinely paid less than minimum wage, denied overtime pay, and subjected to unsafe working conditions. Their contributions to the economy are significant, yet they remain invisible and unprotected. These injustices are unacceptable in a country that claims to value freedom and justice for all. The disparity between the nation's ideals and the reality faced by these vulnerable groups is stark and troubling. It's time to shine a light on the plight of the most vulnerable and demand better. We must advocate for stronger protections, fair wages, and safe working conditions for all workers, regardless of their age, status, or background. Only then can we begin to live up to the principles we so proudly proclaim.
We've talked a lot about problems, about broken systems and failed promises. We've seen the impact of these failures in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and in our daily lives. The evidence is all around us. from the crumbling infrastructure to the empty factories and closed businesses. But this isn't the time for despair. This is the time to harness our collective strength and channel it into action. We must look towards the horizon with hope and determination. It's the time to get angry. Anger can be a powerful catalyst for change when directed towards justice. It's the time to demand better. We deserve more than empty promises and half-hearted efforts. It's the time to fight back. Together, we can create a movement that cannot be ignored. We need to hold our elected officials accountable. They work for us, and it's time they remember that. Call them, email them, write letters, and make your voice heard. Show up at their town halls and demand that they prioritize workers' rights and immigration reform. Let them know that we will not be silent. We need to support organizations that are fighting for change. These groups are on the front lines and they need our help. Donate to legal defense funds, volunteer your time, and offer your skills. Amplify their message on social media. Use your platforms to spread awareness and rally support. And most importantly, we need to listen to the stories of those who have been directly impacted by these injustices. Their voices are crucial in guiding our actions. Let their experiences fuel our anger, our determination, our commitment to creating a more just and equitable society. Their pain and resilience should inspire us to keep pushing forward. This isn't going to be easy. The road ahead is filled with challenges and obstacles, but as the saying goes, if we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything. We must stand firm in our convictions. It's time to stand up for what's right. It's time to unite and take a stand against injustice. It's time to fight for a better future for all, for ourselves, for our children, and for the generations to come. Together, we can make a difference. Pause 3S. We've talked a lot about problems, about broken systems and failed promises. We've seen the impact of these failures in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and in our daily lives. The evidence is all around us, from the crumbling infrastructure to the empty factories and closed businesses. But this isn't the time for despair. This is the time to harness our collective strength and channel it into action. We must look towards the horizon with hope and determination. It's the time to get angry. Anger can be a powerful catalyst for change when directed towards justice. It's the time to demand better. We deserve more than empty promises and half-hearted efforts. It's the time to fight back. Together, we can create a movement that cannot be ignored. We need to hold our elected officials accountable. They work for us, and it's time they remember that. Call them, email them, write letters, and make your voice heard. Show up at their town halls and demand that they prioritize workers' rights and immigration reform. Let them know that we will not be silent. We need to support organizations that are fighting for change. These groups are on the front lines and they need our help. Donate to legal defense funds, volunteer your time and offer your skills, amplify their message on social media, use your platforms to spread awareness and rally support. And most importantly, we need to listen to the stories of those who have been directly impacted by these injustices. Their voices are crucial in guiding our actions. Let their experiences fuel our anger, our determination, our commitment to creating a more just and equitable society. Their pain and resilience should inspire us to keep pushing forward. This isn't going to be easy. The road ahead is filled with challenges and obstacles. But as the saying goes, if we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything. We must stand firm in our convictions. It's time to stand up for what's right. It's time to unite and take a stand against injustice. It's time to fight for a better future for all, for ourselves, for our children, and for the generations to come. Together, we can make a difference. Pause 3S. Now there's a specific cause that needs our immediate attention. The petition for fair treatment of U.S. citizens with undocumented spouses is a critical step towards keeping families together. To whom it may concern, we, the undersigned, are members of mixed-status families and allies whose lives have been deeply affected by the current barriers to the I-131F application for parole, in place for certain non-citizen spouses and stepchildren of U.S. citizens. This process has been a beacon of hope for many of us, offering a chance to keep our families united during the immigration process. However, recent legal challenges have put this critical lifeline in jeopardy, leaving countless families in a state of uncertainty and distress. This issue is not just a personal struggle, it is a widespread challenge impacting many families across our nation. We represent a significant portion of the population who face daily hardships and emotional strain due to the current dysfunction in our nation's immigration laws. As American families, we feel targeted and unheard as Republican states and others seek to undermine our efforts to live with our loved ones. Our stories are diverse but interconnected through a common thread: the desire for family unity and fair treatment. Each of us has a unique journey that intersects with the American dream, and each of us deserves to live without the constant fear of separation. We call for an immediate end to the legal blockages affecting the Keeping Families Together parole process. It is essential for our society to uphold values of inclusivity, fairness, and justice. The U.S. citizens in our families should not be collateral damage in a political battle, but should instead be supported in their pursuit of a life with their families. We urge lawmakers, policymakers, and advocates to listen to our voices and act decisively to ensure that no U.S. citizen has to live in fear of having their family separated. Our plea is for substantial changes to the current immigration norms to protect our right to live with our loved ones peacefully and with dignity. Respect for human rights and family unity are fundamental to any democratic society. It is time to address these injustices and ensure that all families are treated fairly. Please sign this petition to join us in advocating for a more just and inclusive immigration system. Together, we can make our voices heard and work towards a future where all families can remain united without fear.